As promised, we are now joined by Bill Malloy. Bill is a U.S. Navy veteran and legislative advocate for the DAV of Massachusetts. Bill, how are you today?
Good, Chuck. Good morning. Great to be on the show.
Absolutely. It's fantastic to have you here. And again, I'm just so excited about this event. It's one of my favorite days each year to actually do this show. Can you tell us a little bit about your long career with the Navy and just how meaningful it was for you?
Sure, Ken. I mean, I'm a guy that grew up in Situate, Mass., but raised my family nearby in Norwell, where I lived for 28 years. Now I live in Boston. I'm a retired Navy captain with time in both the active and reserve branches of the Navy, a total of 35 years total. I've traveled the world for a little kid growing up in Situate. The Navy took me to 35 different countries in 35 years. It's easy to remember that just because how many countries it is. I got a chance really to learn more about, not just myself, but also about different cultures, different countries. It was a heck of an opportunity.
When you look at your 35 years of service, what are the certain programs or things that helped you that kind of stood out to you and kind of helped to really shape who you are today?
Well, I think every sailor probably has a personal story to tell, and mine is that I was fortunate enough to have a very good sailor buddy who told me before I left active service to copy my entire medical record. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, believe me, you're going to thank me. So I did, and I copied it, and that was the best advice I could have ever received from anybody. I did copy my entire medical record before I left active duty. And when I left, I had trouble filing claims. I had a right knee problem. I fell on the ship, and I also had some hearing loss from being the officer deck of the ship, firing the guns and the missiles all the times that we did. And it just so happens in Boston, I bumped into Dan Stack, who at that time was the state adjutant, and told him of my plight, and he said, we can help. So I joined the DAV, and I've never looked back. The DAV has been there for me personally every step of the way. They helped me file the claims for my right knee and the hearing loss, and since I had a copy of my medical records, they also looked through them and found a few other things I was totally unaware of. So, since that time, I've had my right knee replaced when there was no other option, and I wear hearing aids that I use constantly right now, and I never could have done this by myself. So it was the DAV was truly key and instrumental in me trying to straighten out and get the filing the claims and get just compensation that I was due.
Can you talk a little bit about your legislative advocacy work and how that helps you to give back to the DAV now?
Sure. I mean, I was fortunate enough. My dad was a lobbyist on Beacon Hill. He was actually one of the first ones, started back about 1950. So I kind of grew up at his knee, so to speak, listening and meeting a lot of different politicians. A lot of times it was on the golf course because I was caddying for many notable politicians like Tip O'Neill and Joe Moakley and a few others. So I got a chance to see the interaction of my dad and how a politician reacts to a lobbyist and so forth. So after my time on active duty and my dad asked me to join him, I did. And it was that background and experience that watching my dad interact that I was able to capitalize that and take that over to try and help the veterans, like the DAV in particular, and help them pursue funds that were needed to. They have 3 homes, one out in Gardner and 2 in Leominster, to get funds to do the things they need to do to accomplish their mission.
If you had to, say anything to any veterans who might be listening now, who might have questions about the DAV and how they could potentially help them, what would you say about, how the DAV has helped you, and why do you, kind of choose them out of all the different places that you could have gotten assistance from?
Sure. I mean, you've heard my personal story. Like I said, and many sailors have their own personal story. And soldiers and airmen as well, of course. But the DAV deserves our financial support to be able to continue those services, to offer those services to fellow veterans like they did for me. So I'm asking all veterans out there and friends of the veterans to please give generously so that the DAV can continue their mission in supporting our veterans during this telethon. And you're helping to protect the promise that was made long ago to always take care of our veterans.
Bill, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. Also, obviously, for your service and for your continued support of the DAV. I know there are plenty of people out there who appreciate that, and so thank you so much for everything that you have done and are continuing to do today. We certainly appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Chuck.